On my wedding day, I caught my sister trying to kiss my husband in the hallway. When I confronted her, she immediately flipped it. He came on to me. I was just trying to get away. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just smiled and said, "Let's ask the family." At the reception, I played the CCTV footage on the big screen, her initiating everything, him pushing her away. The room went silent. One by one, our family turned their backs on her. She ran out crying, and no one followed. 2 years later, she's texting, "Please, I was drunk and stupid. Can we ever be sisters again?" They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. For most of it, mine absolutely was. I felt like a princess in my grandmother's vintage lace dress, watching my husband-to-be's eyes light up as I walked down the aisle. Our families had come together beautifully, the flowers were perfect, and even the weather had cooperated with brilliant sunshine streaming through the church windows. But sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. My name is Jasmine, and this is the story of how my older sister Kathy tried to destroy my wedding day, and how I made sure she faced the consequences of her actions in the most spectacular way possible. Kathy and I had always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, 2 years older, naturally gifted at everything, always the center of attention. I learned early on to be content with second place, to celebrate her achievements, and to ignore the small cruelties that came with being the younger sister of someone who needed to be the star of every show. When I got engaged to Matt, I genuinely thought Kathy was happy for me. She helped plan the bachelorette party, offered to help with wedding preparations, and even gave a beautiful speech at our rehearsal dinner about how proud she was to see me so happy. I should have known better. Kathy had never been comfortable when the spotlight wasn't on her, and she'd always relied heavily on our parents for financial support despite being in her late 20s. The ceremony itself went off without a hitch. Matt looked incredibly handsome in his navy suit, and when he said his vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. I felt like the luckiest woman alive as we exchanged rings and sealed our union with a kiss that felt like it could last forever. After the ceremony, we had about an hour for photos before the reception would begin. The photographer was arranging family shots in the church gardens while guests mingled and enjoyed cocktails. I had stepped inside to touch up my makeup and grab my grandmother's pearl earrings from the bridal suite. I'd forgotten to put them on in all the excitement. As I walked down the hallway toward the bridal room, I heard familiar voices coming from around the corner near the coat closet. I recognized Matt's voice immediately, but he sounded uncomfortable, almost strained. "Kathy, please, this isn't appropriate. Jasmine is my wife now." "But we had something special before she came along," came my sister's voice, sultry and pleading. "You remember those nights when we would talk for hours when you first started dating her? I saw how you looked at me." My blood ran cold. I pressed myself against the wall and peered around the corner, hardly believing what I was hearing. "That was friendship, Kathy. I was being polite because you're Jasmine's sister. I've never had romantic feelings for you." "Don't lie to me, Matt. I know you felt it too." What I saw next will be burned into my memory forever. Kathy, my sister, in her emerald green bridesmaid dress, pressed herself against my husband. She put her hands on his chest and leaned in to kiss him, despite his obvious discomfort and attempts to step away. I watched as Matt immediately pushed her back, his face showing complete shock and disgust. "Kathy, stop this right now. I love Jasmine, not you. This is completely inappropriate." But Kathy wasn't giving up. She tried to grab his face with both hands, attempting to pull him down for a kiss. Matt had to physically remove her hands from his face and take several steps backward. "Please, just one kiss." "She doesn't have to know," Kathy begged, reaching for him again. "No, Kathy. This conversation is over. I'm going to find Jasmine, and I suggest you think very carefully about your behavior today." That's when I decided to make my presence known. I stepped around the corner, my wedding dress rustling softly against the floor. Well, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the rage building inside me. "What do we have here?" Kathy's face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds: surprise, fear, calculation, and then something I'd seen many times before, the look she got when she was about to manipulate her way out of trouble. "Jasmine," she exclaimed, her voice suddenly high and shaky. "Thank goodness you're here. Matt just cornered me and tried to kiss me. I was just trying to get away from him." I stared at her for a long moment, watching as she adjusted her dress and tried to look like a victim. This was classic Kathy, caught red-handed but immediately flipping the script to make herself look innocent. Matt looked absolutely stunned. "Jasmine, that's not what happened at all." She approached me and, "I know exactly what happened," I said calmly, cutting him off. "I saw the whole thing." Kathy's eyes widened slightly, but she doubled down on her lie. "Then you saw how inappropriate your husband was being. He took advantage of the fact that we were alone and," "Kathy," I interrupted, My voice still eerily calm. Stop talking. Something in my tone must have warned her that I wasn't buying her story, because she started talking faster, her voice getting more desperate. Jasmine, you have to believe me. I would never do something like that to you. He came on to me, and I was just trying to get away. You saw me trying to get away, right? I'm your sister. I looked at Matt, who was pale but relieved that I had witnessed the truth. Then I looked back at Kathy, who was still playing the victim with Oscar-worthy conviction. You know what, Kathy? I said, a smile spreading across my face. You're right. This is a serious accusation, and everyone should know exactly what happened here. Kathy looked confused but hopeful. She probably thought I was going to publicly confront Matt and cause a scene that would ruin the reception. Let's go ask the family, I continued, my smile growing wider. In fact, let's ask everyone. They deserve to know the truth about what happened today. Jasmine, I don't think that's necessary, Kathy said quickly, some of the color draining from her face. We can handle this privately. As sisters. Oh no, I replied, straightening my veil. This is too important to handle privately. Everyone needs to know exactly what kind of person they're dealing with. Matt took my hand and squeezed it gently. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. I squeezed back. Absolutely certain. Here's what Kathy didn't know. The church had recently installed a comprehensive security system after some valuable items went missing from their office. There were cameras throughout the building, including the hallway where she had just tried to seduce my husband. And here's what else Kathy didn't know. My cousin Jacob worked for the security company that had installed the system and was also helping us with the AV setup for the reception slideshow. When I'd arrived early that morning to prepare for the ceremony, Jacob had mentioned that the cameras had both video and audio recording, and that he could access the footage from his phone if we ever needed it for any reason. I excused myself for a moment and sent Jacob a quick text. I need you to pull the footage from hallway camera from 5 minutes ago and put it on a USB drive. It's an emergency. Jacob, bless him, didn't ask questions. He texted back immediately, on it. Meet me at the AV setup in 10 minutes. I returned to where Matt and Kathy were standing in uncomfortable silence. The reception is about to start, I announced cheerfully. Let's head over to the hall. I have something special planned for tonight. Kathy looked nervous, but she couldn't exactly refuse without looking suspicious. The three of us walked to the reception hall together, and I have to say, my acting skills were superb. I chatted about how beautiful the flowers looked and how excited I was for the first dance, while inside I was planning Kathy's complete and total humiliation. The reception hall looked absolutely magical. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, the centerpieces were perfect, and our families were already seated and looking expectantly toward the head table. Everyone looked so happy and celebratory. Kathy was seated at the family table with our parents, grandparents, and aunts and uncles. Matt and I took our places at the head table, and I could see Kathy watching me nervously from across the room. We went through the usual reception activities, the introduction of the wedding party, the first dance, the father-daughter dance, and dinner service. I played my role perfectly, smiling and laughing and accepting congratulations from guests. But the entire time, I was thinking about what was coming next. Jacob had discreetly handed me the USB drive during dinner, along with a small wireless remote. Everything you need is queued up and ready to go through our projection system, he whispered. Just press the button when you're ready. During dessert service, I stood up and tapped my champagne glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. Excuse me, everyone, I called out, my voice carrying easily across the now quiet room. I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate this incredible day with Matt and me. Your love and support means the world to us. Everyone smiled and a few people clapped politely. Before we continue with the evening's festivities, I continued, I have something important I'd like to share with all of you. Earlier today, there was an incident that I think everyone should know about, especially since it involves accusations of inappropriate behavior. I could see Kathy's face going pale across the room. She was gripping her napkin so tightly her knuckles were white. My sister Kathy has made some very serious claims about my husband's conduct today, I announced, my voice still pleasant and conversational. She says that Matt cornered her and tried to kiss her against her will. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Our parents looked shocked, and I could see Uncle Robert starting to stand up with an angry expression on his face. Now, these are very serious accusations, I continued, raising my hand to quiet the room. So I thought the best way to handle this would be to let you all see exactly what happened and judge for yourselves. Kathy had gone completely white. She was shaking her head and mouthing no at me from across the room. Fortunately, I said, smiling brightly, the church has security cameras throughout the building, and we have footage of the entire incident. That's when Kathy shot to her feet. Jasmine, please, this isn't necessary. I don't want to cause any more drama on your wedding day. Oh, but you already caused the drama, dear sister, I replied sweetly. Now we're just going to clear the air so everyone knows the truth. I nodded to Jacob, who started up the projection system we'd been using for the slideshow of photos during dinner. The large screen at the front of the room flickered to life. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, I present the unedited security footage from today's incident. The room fell completely silent as the video began to play. The quality was surprisingly good, you could clearly see the hallway, and both Kathy and Matt were easily recognizable. The audio was clear enough to hear their conversation as well. Everyone watched as Matt appeared on screen, looking relaxed and happy. Then Kathy entered the frame, and you could immediately see her body language change as she approached him. The entire room heard her sultry voice saying, "But we had something special before she came along," and watched her press herself against Matt despite his clear discomfort. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop as everyone watched and listened to Kathy trying to seduce my husband, heard Matt firmly rejecting her advances, saw her grab his face and try to pull him down for a kiss, and watched him remove her hands and take several steps away from her. The footage was damning and absolutely clear. Kathy had initiated everything. Matt had done nothing but try to get away from her. She had lied completely about what happened. When the video ended, the silence in the room was deafening. Slowly, one by one, heads turned toward Kathy, who was standing frozen by her chair, tears streaming down her face. Our mother was the first to speak, her voice shaking with anger and disappointment. Kathy rose. "How could you do such a thing? On your sister's wedding day?" "It's not what it looks like," Kathy said desperately, but her voice was weak and unconvincing. Everyone had just seen exactly what it looked like. Our father stood up, his face red with fury. "You lied to us, Kathy. You tried to destroy your sister's marriage with lies." "Dad, please, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," our grandmother interrupted, her voice cold as ice. "We all saw what you did, and we all heard you lie about it." One by one, our family members stood up and turned their backs on Kathy. Literally turned their backs. Our cousins, our aunts and uncles, family friends, everyone who had watched her try to seduce my husband and then lie about it. Kathy looked around the room desperately, but found no sympathy anywhere. Even the few people who remained seated were looking at her with disgust and disappointment. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please don't do this." But it was too late. The damage was done, and it was entirely self-inflicted. Kathy grabbed her purse and ran from the reception hall, sobbing. Not a single person followed her. Not our parents, not our cousins, not even our sweet elderly aunt who usually couldn't stand to see anyone upset. After she left, the mood in the room slowly began to shift. People started talking quietly among themselves, and several family members came up to apologize to both Matt and me for Kathy's behavior. My uncle gave Matt a firm handshake and said, "You handled yourself with real class, son. You did exactly what a good husband should do." My mother hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I can't believe she would do something like this to you." The rest of the evening was actually lovely. Without Kathy's negative energy in the room, everyone seemed to relax and enjoy themselves. We had our cake cutting, more dancing, and lots of laughter. It turned out to be a beautiful celebration after all. But Kathy's absence was definitely noticed. Several relatives mentioned how shocking her behavior had been, and more than one person commented that they'd always sensed something wasn't quite right about her attitude toward other people's happiness. Matt and I left for our honeymoon the next morning, and for 2 weeks, we barely thought about the wedding drama. We were too busy exploring Italy, eating amazing food, and being newlyweds. When we returned, the fallout from Kathy's behavior was still reverberating through our family. She had apparently tried calling our parents several times, but they weren't taking her calls. Our cousins had removed her from family group chats, and she'd been uninvited from our cousin Macy's baby shower the following month. Kathy had effectively been cut off from the family, and it was entirely her own doing. Over the next few months, I heard through the grapevine that Kathy was struggling. She'd had to find a new apartment because she couldn't afford her old one without the family financial support she'd been receiving from our parents. She'd also apparently been let go from her job after some kind of workplace drama. I never got the full details, but knowing Kathy's tendency to create conflict and manipulate situations, it wasn't entirely surprising. I didn't feel bad for her. Not even a little bit. She had made her choices, and now she was dealing with the consequences. Matt and I settled into married life beautifully. We bought a house, adopted 2 rescue dogs, and started building the life we'd always dreamed of. Having Kathy out of our lives was honestly a relief. I hadn't realized how much stress or constant drama and attention-seeking had been causing me until it was gone. Our family gatherings became much more peaceful and enjoyable. Without Kathy stirring up trouble or making everything about herself, everyone seemed more relaxed and happy. Even our parents, though they were clearly sad about losing a daughter, admitted that family events were much more pleasant. About 6 months after the wedding, Kathy tried reaching out through our cousin Jacob. She wanted him to pass along a message asking for forgiveness and a chance to make things right. Jacob told her that if she wanted to apologize, she could do it herself, but that I wasn't obligated to respond. She never did reach out directly, though. I think she knew that what she'd done was unforgivable, and that a simple apology wouldn't fix the trust she'd shattered. Life went on. Matt and I celebrated our first anniversary with a beautiful trip to Ireland. I got a promotion at work, and Matt started his own consulting business. We talked about starting a family and maybe getting a bigger house. Kathy became like a distant memory, someone I used to know who had made some very poor choices and was no longer part of my life. Then, almost exactly 2 years after my wedding day, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Jasmine, it's Kathy. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I'm hoping you'll give me a chance to explain. I was in a really dark place 2 years ago, and I made terrible decisions. I was struggling with some personal issues and I had too much to drink that day. I know that's not an excuse, but I want you to know that I've been getting help and working on myself. I miss you so much, and I miss our family. Is there any possibility that we could ever be sisters again? I understand if you can't forgive me, but I had to try. I love you, and I'm sorry for everything." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of me felt a tiny flicker of the old bond we'd shared as children. But mostly, I felt nothing but disappointment and exhaustion. Kathy's text was classic Kathy, full of excuses and self-pity, with just enough genuine emotion to make you want to give her another chance. She blamed her behavior on being in a dark place and having too much to drink, as if those were valid excuses for trying to seduce my husband, and then lying about it. She talked about getting help and working on herself, but there was no real accountability in her message. No acknowledgement of the specific harm she'd caused, no understanding of why her actions were so deeply hurtful and wrong. And most tellingly, she focused on what she had lost, me, our family, rather than on the damage she had caused to others. I showed the message to Matt, who'll read it with a frown. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think Kathy is exactly the same person she's always been," I replied. "She's just gotten better at packaging her manipulation to sound like growth and self-awareness." Matt nodded. "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it for several days. Part of me wanted to ignore the message completely, but another part of me felt like Kathy deserved a clear, final answer. Finally, I sent back a simple response. "Kathy, I received your message. I'm glad you're getting help, and I hope you continue to work on yourself. However, what you did on my wedding day wasn't just a mistake or poor judgment, it was a deliberate attempt to destroy my marriage and my happiness. When that didn't work, you lied about it in a way that could have seriously damaged Matt's reputation and relationships. These weren't the actions of someone who was just having a bad day or struggling with personal issues. They were the actions of someone who was willing to hurt the people closest to her to get what she wanted. I don't hate you, but I also don't trust you, and I don't believe that 2 years of working on yourself erases a lifetime of manipulative behavior. I wish you well, but I'm not interested in rebuilding a relationship. Please don't contact me again." I never heard back from her. 3 years have passed since then, and my life with Matt just keeps getting better. We have a beautiful daughter now, and another baby on the way. We bought a bigger house with a wonderful garden, and our rescue dogs have become the most spoiled pets in the neighborhood. Our family gatherings are still peaceful and joyful without Kathy's presence. My parents have slowly healed from the disappointment of losing a daughter, and they're absolutely devoted grandparents to our little girl. Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret how harshly I handled the situation at my wedding. They wonder if I should have confronted Kathy privately, or if I should have given her a chance to explain herself before exposing her to the entire family. My answer is always the same: Kathy made her choices, and I made mine. She chose to try to seduce my husband on my wedding day. She chose to lie about it when she was caught. And I chose to make sure everyone knew the truth about who she really was. I don't regret it for a second. Some people think families should forgive each other no matter what, but I believe that love and forgiveness have to be earned through genuine remorse and changed behavior. Kathy never showed real remorse, only self-pity and excuses. And her behavior didn't change, even her apology text was manipulative and self-serving. I learned something important from that experience: you don't owe anyone your trust, your forgiveness, or your presence in their life, even if they're family. Especially if they've shown you repeatedly that they're willing to hurt you to get what they want. Kathy taught me that lesson in the most dramatic way possible, and for that, I suppose I should thank her. She showed me exactly who she was, and I believed her. My wedding day was supposed to be about love, commitment, and the beginning of a new chapter with my husband. Kathy tried to make it about her drama and manipulation instead. But in the end, she only succeeded in writing herself out of our story entirely. And honestly, our story is much better without her in it. The best revenge, they say, is living well. Matt and I are living exceptionally well, surrounded by people who truly love and support us. We have a beautiful family, fulfilling careers, and a future full of possibilities. Kathy, as far as I know, is still trying to convince people that she's changed, still playing the victim, still making excuses for her choices. Some things never change. But that's not my problem anymore. I learned to protect my peace, my marriage, and my happiness from people who would destroy them for their own selfish purposes. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remove toxic people from your life, even if they share your DNA. And I learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's dramatic, even when it's public, even when it hurts, is sometimes the only way to make sure the truth is heard. My sister thought she could manipulate her way through life, hurting people and facing no consequences. On my wedding day, she learned that some actions have permanent repercussions. I hope she learned something from that experience, but honestly, it's not my concern anymore whether she did or didn't. I have a beautiful life to live, and I refuse to waste any more of it worrying about Kathy's choices or Kathy's feelings or Kathy's attempts at redemption. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. And sometimes that's exactly how it should be.